Hey y'all, welcome to Gadfly, a podcast about third parties, fringe candidates, and generally weird American electoral history. I'm Dusty Wilson.
I'm Una O'Leary.
Woo! And we are back on our 2024 political grind, going through every third party presidential candidate who is either in a semi-major third party or the independents who do end up making the ballot. And we're not really going to find out who those people are until like the end of August, really. So
we're back, baby.
Yeah,
it's freaks and weirdos all the way through.
Oh my God, it's all that we are going to have time for probably until the end of the year, but we'll see how it goes. So keeping up with that today, we're diving back into modern day American socialism.
Yay!
Yeah, and I kind of figured this would be a pretty decent one to bridge the gap between Eugene Debs and the modern era, because there is some affiliation with Eugene's old Socialist Party, but we'll get to that. Just a heads up, there's going to be a bit of a trigger warning at some point in time. I'll give you a heads up on that, and it's going to be for like about 2 or 3 minutes, so just hit the 15-second forward on Spotify or whatever your podcast thing of choice.
Would it be a modern third party election or group without some sort of trigger warning involved?
Look, if there is anything I have learned befriending a lot of people in the leftist community, especially socialists, the amount of assault that occurs within socialist parties in America is outlandish. So sadly, it's just par for the fucking course. So with that as a heads up going into it, today we're going to be talking about the Socialist Workers Party. They announced their nominees for president about a month and a half ago. A woman by the name of Rachele, who is a hotel worker from Miami, Florida, is going to be the presidential nominee. The vice presidential nominee was Margaret Tro, who was working for a candy company in Oakland. However, she had to drop out due to health reasons, so hopefully she's doing better. But she was replaced by a fellow named Dennis Richter, who is from Los Angeles and works at a Walmart.
Okay.
So we'll get into them a bit more. But the thing with the Socialist Workers Party is they have a long, convoluted history.
Ooh.
And honestly, it works really, really well for American socialism because it has all the hallmarks that you would expect. Multiple rifts and shifts and people getting kicked out and arguments over theory that get very, very heated. So to really kind of understand the Socialist Workers Party, we have to understand the biggest tenet behind the party. And Una, I'm sorry, that means we have to talk about Leon Trotsky.
No, you see, this make Russian studies and the Russian language was like the major that got away.
Yeah.
Like that's really what I should have done in undergrad. So this is like inner child self-care.
Oh, okay, good.
Like lay it on me.
Well, the thing, huge asterisks going into this. I am not a smart man when it comes to discussing communist or socialist theory. It all gets very lost on me very quickly, as I'm sure is very obvious for anyone who's listened to this podcast for more than a couple episodes. So this is going to be a Spark Notes at best summary of Trotsky and the Trotskyist theory. So if you want to learn more about it, I'd highly recommend searching out people who are better experts on the subject than I am.
They're out there.
They want to talk. They are happy to talk about this. But like I said, we gotta talk about old Leon if we're gonna understand the Socialist Workers Party. So Lev Davidovich Bronstein was born in 1879 in modern-day Beroslavka, Ukraine. He was born into quite a bit of wealth. His father was a landowner and a landlord, I believe. And so he was born into a decent amount of wealth. At the age of 17, Lev began to participate in socialist actions and was won over to Marxism by the time he was 18. He spent a year in college, but dropped out to devote all of his time to labor organizing. This got him thrown in prison for 2 years, where fellow prisoners introduced him to the writings of Vladimir Ilyich Lenin. In 1900, Lev was sentenced to 4 years exile in Siberia, and this gave him a decent amount of free time to further study and agree with the idea that overthrowing the Russian monarchy was a better way to install socialism than labor organizing.
It's almost like they also needed prison reform in a way.
I do find it incredibly hilarious that the monarchs and czars of Russia were just like, no, just send everyone we don't like to an open-air prison in Siberia and it'll just go away. It won't just foment an entire movement where they are left alone with nothing to do all day but think and break rocks. So halfway through his exile, Lev escaped Siberia, moved to London, abandoned his family, remarried within a year, and changed his name to Leon Trotsky.
Ooh, the
So
glow up.
the funny thing about this is it was his first wife that convinced him to escape Siberia.
Oh, and then
Uh-huh.
he leaves her for a
Within
younger woman.
within a year, remarries a woman, an exile in London, and just
Uh,
completely forgets about his first family.
wow.
Great,
Okay.
stellar move. His
Classic.
two daughters from that first marriage end up dying in the Red Terror.
Good Lord.
Yeah, doesn't go well for his first family.
Ah,
So it's here in London that he met Vladimir Lenin and worked for the very newspaper that convinced Trotsky that the Russian czars had to be overthrown. In 1905, Trotsky snuck back into Russia to push for revolution, was arrested again, and again sentenced to exile in Siberia, this time for a lifetime sentence in Siberia. He ended up serving none of this because on the train ride to Siberia, he snuck away halfway there.
okay, that's
Yeah,
easy.
and then returned to London.
Hey.
He then moved to Vienna, Austria for 7 years and helped in growing the Socialist Party there and did a little bit of work also organizing in Germany. At the outbreak of World War I, Trotsky moved to Paris, actively advocated for anti-war interests, and in 1916 he was deported to Spain. The problem though is Spain did not want him, so Spain then deported him to America.
We
I
had
did
Trotsky for a bit?
We had Trotsky for a decent little bit of time. For 2 months, Trotsky lived in the Bronx until
Classic.
the February Revolution kicked off in Russia, which led to the overthrow of the Tsar. And that was more than enough for Leon to decide to go back to Russia.
Hell yeah.
The problem, though, is he started to go over on a British ship and was immediately detained by the British and sent to a prisoner of war camp in Nova Scotia, Canada, for a couple of months.
Just let the man get back to Russia.
After some goading by the new Russian government, Trotsky was released. And by the end of the year, he had helped Lenin seize control of the government and was considered Lenin's right-hand man. Trotsky was placed in charge of the Russian army and navy, which some people kind of question that because he didn't have any military experience whatsoever, but he's Lenin's friend, so what are you going to do? And he was given this position just in time for the 2 year Russian Civil War
Yay.
between the Red Army and the White Army. The White
Right.
Army was supportive of the monarchists, the Red Army supporting communism, and this is where the Red Terror comes into play. Oh, his first family was not killed in the Red Terror. I mistook that with Stalin's purges.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah, his first family died
no.
in the Stalin purges.
No.
Mhm.
Ah.
So the Red Terror comes into play, and we briefly brought that up during our episode on Eugene Debs, but didn't really dive deeper into it. The Red Terror was enacted after multiple assassination attempts against Lenin and Trotsky. It was essentially a mass retaliation carried out by the government's secret police against anyone who was a potential enemy. Estimates vary wildly, but between 50,000 to 2 million people were killed over a 4 year period. That said, the consensus of the number of people killed tends to be in the range of 100,000 to 150,000, but that's still a fuck ton of people.
So many.
And Leon Trotsky supported these mass executions as a necessity to ensure the survival of the new Soviet government, and stated that the Red Terror was simply a response to similar actions perpetrated by the other side in the Civil War. Citation needed.
You know, the way you get a really bad fever if you have an infection.
Right. And look, I don't doubt that the White Army did some really fucked up stuff to the communists. It's just, numerically, they don't really compare. Again, lots of stuff happens. We're doing a Spark Notes. By 1924, Lenin died after suffering 3 strokes during a 2 year period. And during that time, Stalin snuck his way into being the successor to ruling the government, even though everyone knew that Lenin wanted Trotsky to be the next leader.
Ah.
For those of you who want a bit more of an in-depth history lesson on this, I would highly recommend watching Oversimplified's episode on the Cold War. It's a 2-parter,
Ooh.
starting with the death of Lenin and him being like, hey, make sure Stalin doesn't end up being in charge. By the way, who's my successor? Technically Stalin. And then he dies. Then everything gets better.
Huh.
So when Stalin took over, he fired Trotsky from running the military. In 1927, Stalin kicked Trotsky out of the party, and Trotsky was eventually exiled into modern-day Kazakhstan. A year later, Trotsky was banned from the Soviet Union and forced to move to Turkey. By 1935, any remaining followers of Trotsky in the Soviet Union were killed in Stalin's Great Purge. The next year, Trotsky was found guilty in a show trial that he was not present at and sentenced to death, which meant that in 4 years, when Trotsky was assassinated in his home in Mexico City, that was just filling out what the trial wanted him to do. So that's a shitty history of Trotsky.
Oh.
As for the socialist theory of Trotskyism, I looked into it and compared it a lot to Marxist-Leninist theory, and I found one difference between the two, or at least one major difference between the two.
Okay.
With Marxist-Leninist theory, it believes in the socialism in a country theory, where the idea is you focus on building socialism in your own nation to ensure that at least your people are well taken care of and socialism is given the ability to grow. Trotsky, however, believed that even if you did this, if capitalism was still going on in the rest of the world, eventually it's going to corrupt your nation and you're not going to have socialism anymore.
I feel like this is born out of Homeboy not being allowed back in Russia so many times,
Maybe.
where he's like, well, I keep being stuck in fucking London
Mm-hmm.
where everyone's an asshole and it's
Right.
capitalist's fault.
Yeah.
What are we doing here, guys?
But I'll also say he's kind of not wrong. I think China is a wonderful example of the largest
Mm.
communist government in the world that is very much state-sponsored capitalism. It's, capitalism exists elsewhere, and it has, for a simplified argument's sake, infiltrated China's political theory, and China is very much not a communist nation, at least in the Marxist theory of it. I don't know. What do you think?
Oh boy. No, I agree with you totally about China. And I think it was like another one of those situations where I think after Tiananmen Square, there was kind of a tacit agreement between people and party of like, okay, you can start to get rich personally. And in exchange, you won't protest the government. Are we cool? Cool. And so that started like the wave of real estate and Alibaba and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah. So it's as much I hate to say it, Leon was kind of right with that. But, also
Is it,
cool reason to have him assassinated in his own home.
he was in Mexico City, man. He could have just lived in Mexico City hanging out with Diego Rivera and
Mhm.
Frida Kahlo.
Counterpoint, Stalin mad.
Yeah.
Stalin stay mad. I mean,
Big mad.
Stalin let his own son die. It's like he
Yeah.
holds a grudge and murder is nothing to him.
Ugh.
Uh, as for the Socialist Workers Party, their history is a repetitive drama, so buckle the fuck up.
All right.
As is tradition, the Socialist Workers Party was formed thanks to the split from a larger party that had been kicked out of a larger party. So, 1928, the Communist Party of the United States of America took the side of Joseph Stalin after the death of Lenin and expelled all Trotskyists from its party. Lucky for the CPUSA, they did not have that many Trotskyists in the party, and it really only meant kicking out about 100 people.
Okay, so they even did a little mini purge?
Yeah, tiny little purge. Just like,
A wee
Stalin hates
purge.
Trotsky, so this is an easy move for us. These 100 people, though, really wanted to have their own political party and founded the Communist League of America. From the jump, the CLA did not have a very good time. Despite their meetings and influence being very small, the Communist Party still wanted to make sure that the CLA did not grow bigger than they were, so they often broke into the homes of party leaders or showed up at CLA meetings and just kicked the shit out of people.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Co-founder Jim Cannon alleged that his apartment had been broken into, and but also he noted that the CLA was not a very good time for him, and I'm paraphrasing here, found members annoying as fuck. Quote, many of the newcomers made a fetish of democracy. They were repelled so much by the bureaucracy of the Communist Party that they desired an organization without any authority or discipline or centralization whatever. All the people of this type have one common characteristic. They like to discuss things without limit or end. They can all talk, and not only can, but will, and everlastingly on every question. They are iconoclasts who would accept nothing as authoritative, nothing as decided in the history of the movement. Everything and everybody had to be proved over and over again from scratch.
Ladies, you have been on dates with these men. I promise you, even if they were sleeper agents, you've experienced this.
Yeah, it's, so Jim Cannon is eventually going to become one of the co-founders of the Socialist Workers Party. This is the one moment where I'm like, you're really onto something here, Jim. You really got this.
You're on the pulse.
Broken clock twice a day. But so thanks predominantly to the party becoming just a glorified debate club, membership remained low. By 1934, the party finally doubled membership to 200 people. And those
Yay!
people were mostly just in Minneapolis and New York City, and that was it. But any chance of growing beyond that was gone. So, with options gone, the CLA chose to merge with the American Workers' Party to create the Workers' Party of the United States. So, you're definitely going to notice that the Workers' Party is an incredibly popular name for a lot of these groups.
Yes.
So there's going to be many of them. Don't get confused because when I
Oh.
say they're gone, it's a different one showing up in the future.
All right, I got a pen and paper next to me.
Oh my god. All right, you will need it. So, as is tradition, they kicked off their new party by getting into an immediate ideological fight.
Great guys.
This time it's over a tactic known as entryism. Now, the general idea of entryism is that, say there's a larger political party. Let's just call it the Socialist Party of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Socialist Party of the United States, they're probably a little closer to Marxist Leninists, probably more traditional Marxists in general, but they have more power and more influence. So, what if we decided to join their party, but in the meantime, when we get people one on one, we get them to convert to Trotskyism? And if we do that enough, then the larger party becomes a Trotskyist party and we take it over.
Have you ever heard of a thing called a parasite?
I knew there was a better word for this.
Well, get ready. What we do is we enter the host body.
Oh my god. Hey, you know that creature that lives in a fish's mouth and becomes its tongue? We're gonna do that.
But Trotskyism, so it's okay.
Right. And so the party ends up getting into a knockdown drag-out fight over this. And it's less than a year old. So the majority loves the idea of entryism. And the main reason they like it so much is they're noticing that this like weird guy named Adolf Hitler is starting to gain a lot of power in Germany.
Ugh.
And it's probably a good idea for communists in general to come together and create one big party that everyone can support.
You gotta love a common enemy.
Yeah. But the problem though is that, yeah, we want to create a big party, but we also want to keep fighting and be a parasite within that big party. And, just keep doing schisms and keep trying to be sneaky until we get found out. So you're not actually trying to create a unified party. You're just being a sneaky dick.
Well, we'd be unified if we were all Trotskyites.
Right? Look, that's just what I've been fucking saying. So the Workers' Party ends up splitting within a year due to entryism. The majority in support of the idea, including Jim Cannon, joined the Socialist Party, which is Eugene Debs' old party, but by this point Eugene's dead. And the party's already in like a three-way factional fight between the old guard and the anarchists and like somewhere in between. I wrote this down, but I couldn't be bothered to look it up right now because it's just so fucking ridiculous. And so they kind of sense that the Socialist Party is a little wounded right now, so they're going in to join to convince them to become Trotskyists. But little do they know, the Socialist Party is accepting them because they think they're going to be able to convince them to not be Trotskyists.
Okay, I saw this image of a cat licking the forehead of a large bunny, and someone wrote, haha, for cats, grooming is a sign of dominance, and for bunnies, being groomed is a sign of dominance. So they both feel like they're in control. And that's all I can
Oh
think
my
of with
God.
this. Like, that's the image for this, what's going on.
100 fucking percent. I mean, it's an idea that's broken from the jump because these are people who are so ideologically hardcore. Neither side is gonna win. Meanwhile, the minority of the party that's like entryism is fucking dumb, so let's just keep doing our thing, ends up splitting off to form their own party called the Revolutionary Workers League. So a year later, after joining the Socialist Party, the Socialist Party kicks them out because they're not being convinced that Trotskyism is wrong. They keep trying to convert other members within the party. But worst of all, the Trotskyists refuse to support Fiorello LaGuardia for mayor of New York City.
LaGuardia!
Yeah. So fun fact about LaGuardia. LaGuardia was a Democratic Socialist nominee for mayor.
Hey!
The party at the time was called the American Labor Party, but they were very much Democratic Socialists. They were formed from the old guard members of the Socialist Party who ended up leaving at some point. And then the Socialist Party is like, well, fuck it. This is a really big race, so we're going to support LaGuardia.
Nice.
LaGuardia gets nominated by the American Labor Party. The Republicans end up supporting him. But, the Trotskyists, being ideologically hardcore, refused to support him. And somehow that was the final straw that got him kicked out of the Socialist Party.
Incredible.
Which leads us to 1938. The Trotskyists have cycled through every party they could, and by this point, they now have no political home. So they did what every wayward socialist movement does, and Jim Cannon and the 2,000 remaining followers met in Chicago, as is tradition, and founded a brand new political party called the Socialist Workers Party.
Socialist Workers Party.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, and so these are the main dudes that we're talking about.
Okay.
So from here on out, the Socialist Workers Party continues to exist. But that's not to say that they wouldn't go through multiple fractures and breaks with other people. The rest of this is kind of a spark notes of all the breakups they've had. So just kind of take it in as like school gossip.
Your best hits. Okay.
Right. In 1940, 2 years after the party was created, the party split over whether or not they should support the USSR in any and all wars against capitalist nations.
Okay.
So the USSR had just invaded Finland.
Oh.
Yeah. So this is the weird part where Finland actually ends up joining the Axis side for a little bit because you got to keep Russia out of Finland because Russia really wants Finland.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, listen, I'm with Finland on this the same way that like it made sense to Ireland just nope out completely.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. And so the argument was, do we support the Soviet Union invading Finland or do we not support this? Because that's kind of a weird thing to do. A very imperialistic thing to do for a group of people who don't like imperialism.
Yeah.
So the majority of the party of the Socialist Workers supported backing the USSR no matter what, while the minority claimed that the Soviet Union had devolved in its socialist ideals to the point that it couldn't be considered a socialist nation and should not get support. And this led to further arguments that factions within the party should not have their own newspapers, and disagreements should only ever be discussed in private meetings.
So we're doing great.
Yeah, the family's doing great. It's no one else's fucking business if we're fighting. So shut up, quit writing down the things that you don't like, and maybe we'll let you stay. So leaders of the Socialist Workers Party were called bureaucratic conservatives, and this grasping for power and control was a very regular theme when it came to party splits then and in the future. This particular argument resulted in the party minority leaving and founding the Workers' Party. Nice and brief. No of America, no of the United States, just the Workers' Party.
Yeah, all
And
workers could get behind that.
And with them, they took 40% of the Socialist Worker Party membership, and of that including 80% of their youth membership.
Ooh.
So going into 1941, the party had been, whatever the word is for 4 times decimated, quintessimated.
That sounds right.
And it was about to get worse. The year prior, America had passed the Alien Registration Act, or as is more commonly known, the Smith Act, which established penalties for trying to overthrow the government and also required all non-citizen adults to register with the government.
Cool.
Huge shock. The law was predominantly used to arrest communists and socialists and anti-war people. 11 leaders of the Communist Party were imprisoned under this act, which led to another 98 convictions of communists. Many leaders of the Socialist Workers' Party were arrested under the auspices of this law, and on average, this meant a prison sentence of up to 5 years and a fine of $10,000 or $131,000 in today's money. Also, I think this law is still on the books.
Oh, yikes.
Not great. So going into the 1950s, the Socialist Workers Party leadership is now out of jail. Everything can get back on track. And by back on track, I mean the party was about to get smaller and smaller thanks to just repeated ideological squabbling. In 1951, a group left due to the new view that the Soviet Union had abandoned communism for state-run capitalism. In 1953, another group left due to their support of Greek Trotskyist Michel Pablo and their wish to disband the Fourth International. In 1958, another batch of people left and formed the Workers' World Party when the Socialist Workers Party didn't support the Soviet Union's brutal response to the Hungarian Revolution. Very, very brutal time when Hungary tried to depose the communist government in 1956 that left 5,000 people killed, 13,000 wounded, and 200,000 exiled. And by the end of the decade, the Socialist Workers Party was bleeding membership, and those that remained were frankly old enough to worry about the party dying shortly after they did. The party desperately needed a new angle to bring in the youths, and lucky for them, an option presented itself in 1959. A revolutionary by the name of Fidel Castro had just succeeded in taking over Cuba, creating a burst of excitement in American communism. And sensing an opportunity to grow their ranks, the Socialist Workers Party took on the second biggest pillar of their organization, Castroism.
Castroism, sure.
So strategically, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It's a great, it's a really easy way to gain new adherents, things things like that. Theoretically, though, it is a baffling fucking move that I'm shocked they can still get away with to this day. And that is because Castro was not a Trotskyist. He was a Marxist-Leninist and remained a Marxist-Leninist until the day he died.
Okay, so yeah, what have we been fighting and pissing and moaning about for the last couple decades?
Look, man, we got to get numbers up. I don't know what to tell you. Look,
We
theory.
don't have Hollywood screenwriters anymore, so we need bodies.
Theory means everything until numbers get a little too low. And then, look, we'll give it a shot. And that's the thing that was like, it's not like Castro. It's kind of hard to tell whether or not he hated Trotsky. Because he was, at one point, I believe in 2008, stated that he viewed Trotsky as the obviously more intellectual between him and Stalin, which, I mean, yeah, water's wet, you breathe air. Trotsky's more intellectual than Stalin. That's,
Yeah.
It's a very safe statement to make, even if you're the leader of an entire country. It's a very safe statement to make. And in 1966, he did make his feelings on Trotskyism exceptionally clear. Quote, even though at one time Trotskyism represented an erroneous position, but a position in the field of political ideas, Trotskyism became during the following years a vulgar instrument of imperialism and reaction.
Why does everyone hate this man?
Look, people just have very strong opinions as to whether or not you should focus on your own business or you make it the world's business. And I think someone like Fidel Castro, who got to lead Cuba for his fucking life, was probably a lot more focused on making sure Cuba was doing good and not getting bombed out of existence. He didn't have time to build socialism throughout the world.
Cuba, also, last time I checked, an island, significantly easier.
Yes.
Like 90 miles or not, you're isolated.
Right. Look, our cars are not very new, but we focused on building a pretty good healthcare system.
Yes, our children can read.
Objectively, things are fine. So let us focus on this.
Just don't ask anyone in Miami.
No. Look, we're gonna get to Miami.
Ooh.
Anyway, so suddenly now the Socialist Workers Party is a Trotskyist Castroist party, which is just mind-boggling, but hey, it works. Their numbers end up increasing, led to a boost in youth membership, and gave the party a second life. And sure, in 1966 there would be another split due to the party's alleged bureaucracy and suppression of unacceptable ideas. But this one split is a huge improvement from the multiple splits that happened in the 1950s. Also, fun fact, in 1965 there was a very, very small split when Lyndon LaRouche quit the Socialist Workers Party to try to take over the Students for a Democratic Society at Columbia. But this also kind of kickstarted a really kind of a golden age for the party, because party membership grew as they threw their support behind people like Malcolm X and started taking part in multiple protests against the Vietnam War. Many of the modern members of the party credit joining the party due to the party's support of civil rights during this time, as well as fighting the Vietnam War. By the 70s, they had added members via the pro-abortion movement and through the support of La Raza Unida, and by 1973, they were at their highest peak of membership and could afford to kick out a little over 100 members in the next year due to their support of funding guerrilla warfare in Central America, which the Socialist Workers Party, for some reason, did not support.
All right.
Don't know why, but fuck. But possibly the biggest win for the party came in 1976 with the Church Committee. Now, Una, are you familiar with the Church Committee?
I am not.
This should be something that is taught in every high school in America because it is one of the most influential congressional committees in the modern history of America.
Ooh, but Dusty, you and I both know that as public school alumni, we get to Kennedy, maybe Johnson.
Wow,
and then,
you got to Kennedy? Like, we didn't make it out of the 1900s ever. Like, I think we got to the Gilded Age once, and all I knew about that was Mark Twain and Pretty Houses.
Incredible. Yeah, and then it's like, well, summer break. Okay, bye.
Sorry, we'll try again next year. See ya. So the Church Committee was run by Democratic Idaho Senator Frank Church, and the goal of the Church Committee was to look into alleged abuses connected to the CIA, NSA, FBI, and the IRS. Now, It would take us, I think, probably 3 or 4 episodes to go through everything that the church committee found. So I'm just gonna hit the greatest hits here as quickly as I can. One of the things they found was a little thing called Project Shamrock, which allowed the NSA to intercept telegrams coming in and out of America without a warrant, and proved that every telecommunications company in America was working directly with the NSA during this time without people knowing.
Oh my God.
There was a program called Family Jewels that was run by the CIA. And this was kind of an overarching sort of program, but it included surveilling journalists at the Washington Post, intercepting mail from the Soviet Union and China, including mail from Vietnam that went to Jane Fonda,
Oh my God.
building a trove of documents on anti-war activists, and approving assassination attempts against Fidel Castro, Patrice Lumumba, and Rafael Trujillo. Now, none of those assassinations worked, but it was revealed that the CIA really wanted to kill them.
Yeah.
After that is COINTELPRO, which is an FBI program that spied on, discredited, and targeted multiple civil rights movements in America. This is the program that consistently threatened Martin Luther King Jr. over the phone,
Oh my God. Right.
often telling him to kill himself because they had proof that he was cheating on his wife, or they were just going to present evidence to discredit him in some way or another. And this program was also used to assassinate Fred Hampton in Chicago.
Wow.
Yeah. But on top of all of that is MK Ultra, a CIA program that illegally tested psychotropics on people to see whether or not they could brainwash them, psychologically torture people, or force confessions.
Cool, guys. Cool,
Yeah.
cool, cool, cool,
Yeah.
cool.
And so the church committee discovered all of this in 1976. President Gerald Ford tried very hard to make none of this go public, but Frank Church, being a pretty decent guy, forced them to publicize it and had the FBI, CIA, NSA, and IRS testify before the Senate about all the things that they had found. And one of the things they found, which is very minor compared to everything else that I just listed, was the FBI being forced to testify that, yes, they had been, spying on the Socialist Workers Party for decades, that they had verified over 100 break-ins of party offices, that they had about 1,300 informants over a 3-decade period, one of which was a guy named Ed Heisler, who was elected to be on the party's national committee. So this should have been a very embarrassing thing, but it also was a moment where the FBI had to admit on record that the Socialist Workers Party had never once instigated or encouraged violence or any overthrow of the American government at any point in time. So it's a huge vindication in a lot of regards. One, that they are a peaceful socialist movement, but secondly, they were right about all that paranoia. Yeah, the government was watching us. The government was framing us. They were breaking into shit. They fucking took my keys and hid the remote. I fucking knew it.
Evergreen quote, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean you're wrong.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, that had to be such a big moment for so many socialist parties to be like, yeah, we were being gaslit on this. We fucking,
Yeah, it wasn't crazy.
Right.
It really was the FBI.
The downside, though, is ever since the church committee, especially with the Socialist Workers Party, they have been very knee-jerky that anything bad that happens is because of the federal government.
Oh.
Despite the fact that, at least on record, the CIA and the FBI stopped all watching of these parties in 1976 because now everyone fucking knows about it, and it's going to be a waste of time, at least until they calm down. So now we're riding high into 1978. The party has the highest membership they've ever had. They are justified in believing that the federal government's been fucking with them all this time, and now they have free reign to grow. The problem, though, is the civil rights movement had already gotten a lot of, pretty big victories. There was still a lot to go, but a lot of the public support and the size of the protest were getting smaller and smaller. Not the sort of like overall public acceptance. Well, I mean, actually, that's a dumb fuck thing to say because in the 60s, it's not like, the public was overly supportive of Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. I guess the groundswell of like student support and things like that in the late 60s had kind of gone away as you enter the mid to late 70s.
Yeah, the cynicism across the nation was creeping in.
Right. Yeah. So, you still had pretty strong true believers in the anti-war movement, but since Vietnam was done, there's, no one really knows which war to now point at. And so they had to figure out what they were going to do next. And so in 1978, the party decides on, what I would prefer to call a bad plan. They decide they're going to put all their eggs in one basket and focus entirely on the labor movement.
Ah, okay.
So the big plan is that every member of the party, irregardless of study, training, established career, or how long they've lived in a place, would quit their job, move to a small town or working class city such as Detroit or Cleveland, take the first blue collar job that they could get, and then agitate for union growth and to guide interested workers towards Trotskyism.
No.
Look, it worked for Pol Pot, so
They're trying to do to like other socialist groups,
uh-huh.
but now in like hardened Rust Belt communities.
Yeah, entryism on workers.
No, no,
No, what could go wrong?
especially as like the disaffection of those union members because the union administration, like that was the start of like them fucking over their own workers.
Correct. Very correct.
Like I don't want to start quoting the deer hunter, but I will.
As I said, Dee Mao. But yeah,
It's
it's an excellent thing. But and also I have to think that this is a very intellectualist view of like small town Rust Belt America that,
it's so patronizing.
100 fucking percent that these people can just go into a coal mining town, take a job in the mines, and this strange out of towner is suddenly going to get everyone in Louisa, Kentucky to fight the man and to create a socialist system throughout the state. They are going to see through your bullshit within 5 fucking minutes. And I was talking to a couple of people about this. One of the biggest criticisms of this plan is that the Socialist Workers Party was not very good at follow through. They were very good at like moving people to towns to try to agitate, but no one stayed long to actually see things through. If things weren't working after a couple of years, they'd fucking move somewhere else and just give up. And in a lot of these
Also, like frankly, probably culture shock set in.
yeah, and frankly, if you're the thing that all these people are looking for is someone who's going to stand by them even when things are hard. Even if it starts out with them not liking you. If you
Yeah.
prove that you are there for them and that you can follow through and that even things get tough, you don't leave, then you have a chance to actually do something. But the bigger thing is to not make it about yourself. It's about to kind of grow that movement with people who've lived there their whole fucking lives. It's up to them to do that. If you're coming in from out of nowhere with like an Ivy League education to suddenly decide you're gonna, be a parts mover, I'm foreshadowing, and then like that you're gonna be making this huge difference, no one's gonna fucking listen to you. So this was a thing that really fucking angered me.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty big fucking turning point too, but we'll get to it. So when you look at various people who have run for office with the Socialist Workers Party, it is also something that you see is that they bounce around from state to state and location to location, usually about every 5 years. So there is at least evidence of this occurring. But I should probably use an example of, the party sending someone to a smaller city to try to make a difference, but then highly exaggerating what the person was able to accomplish or what they've done. And so for this example, let's go to 1988 and look at a man named Mark Curtis. So Mark Curtis moved to Des Moines, Iowa, and took a job at a meat packing plant. And according to the Socialist Workers Party, he immediately got involved in not just the labor movement, but also became an integral voice in the local immigration movement. So while he's working in the meat packing plant, INS swoops in and ends up arresting 17 undocumented workers and threatening them with deportation. So Mark dives headlong into this, working with local organizations, giving speeches at events. But the reason that we know about his activism is because it's very well documented by the party. And that's because shortly after he gets involved in the immigration movement in Des Moines, he is arrested in a frame-up by local police. So Curtis claimed that after speaking at an event for the arrested immigrants, he joined some friends at a bar for a few drinks. Afterwards, gets in his car, starts driving home. He's at a stoplight when suddenly a young black girl approaches his car and, in a very panicked tone, asks him for a ride home. She says she's worried for her safety and claims that there's a man following her and that she just really needs a ride to get home as quick as possible. Curtis agrees, drives her home, even walks her up to her front door to make sure she gets in okay. She goes inside and he turns around, and as he turns around, a Des Moines cop busts out of the front door. From the bushes comes another cop. They tackle him from both sides. The cop from inside the house pulls down his pants, and they arrest him on charges of burglary for breaking into the house and sexual assault of the girl that he drove home, who they stated was 14 years old. He's then taken to the police station, gets the shit kicked out of him, and is thrown in jail on these false charges. The Socialist Workers Party quickly gets to work and formed the Mark Curtis Defense Committee to free Mark. Using the goodwill they'd built throughout the 70s, the SWP descended on Des Moines and flooded the city government with pleas to release Curtis. They sent mail, they called, they had people on the ground, like actively harassing people to be like, this man was framed and he needs to be released. What was interesting, though, is that despite Curtis's activism in Des Moines, the party wasn't able to get any support for Mark locally. Fred Palka of On the Issues magazine found this odd and looked into the case a little further.
Oh dear.
And he was able to find that the savage beating that Mark got from the cops had actually happened. And in 1992, the police would be found guilty of assault and battery and fined $11,000. The problem, though, is this is the only thing that ended up being true. When Fred Pelka asked local activists about Mark Curtis, no one knew who he was. Workers at the meat plant never heard Mark speak at union meetings, and he was known as just kind of being a quiet worker who showed up, did his job, and then went home, which in a work environment is as normal as you can fucking get. When Pelka went to the immigration activists to see if they had heard of him, not only did they say that they had never heard of him, but there was no way he could have spoken at that event before he went to the bar before his arrest, because they did not see him and he did not speak. And then there's the testimony of Demetria Morris, the child that Mark Curtis raped.
Oh no.
So here, this is the point where I would highly recommend skipping about 3 to 5 minutes in the future. So Demetria testified that she and her younger brother were watching TV alone in their home. They heard a knock on the front door and she asked who it was. And from behind the door, she heard a guy say, "It's Mark." And when she opened the door, he asked if someone named Keith lived there. If I remember it correctly, the Keith he was looking for lived a couple doors down, but had lived at that house prior, but had recently moved, and Mark, went there accidentally. Demetria said that he didn't live there. And then Mark asked if her parents were home. She said no, and that is when he attacked her and attempted to rape her and sexually assaulted her. It's at that moment her brother immediately called 911, and within 10 minutes, the police pulled Mark off of Demetria, catching him in the act of doing it. And I assume that this was the inciting incident that led to his ferocious ass beating at the station. So in the lead up to the trial, SWP members harassed Demetria and intimidated her at the trial by filling up all available seating during her testimony.
Oh no.
By the trial, Mark had changed his story a little bit too, and now he claimed that Demetria wasn't the woman who had picked him up, because it became an issue of like, how did the police convince this 14-year-old child to frame you?
Yeah.
And so he had to change it from like, oh yeah, she was the girl I picked up, to it, no, it was a different woman I picked up who was clearly above age, and then she disappeared into the house, and that's when the cops came out. And I don't know why this child is agreeing with the cops that I did this, but that is now my defense.
Oh.
Fred Pelka also found it very intriguing that this frame-up could only work through just the most fortuitous of events, and that if the police did concoct this, it's a bad plan, because they had to guess when Fred would leave the bar, they had to guess what stoplight he would stop at, they had to guess that he would, go to this random house accidentally.
They had to be in the bushes.
Right. It's nonsensical if this was something that was planned by the cops. And I'm not one to support cops in many situations, but in this one, Mark Curtis is a fucking creep and a liar. And the SWP supported him even after he was sentenced to jail. Charles was kept in prison until 1996 when he was paroled. And when he was released, the SWP celebrated him and continued supporting him, until he was arrested again in Chicago in 1999 on a charge of solicitation. At that point, they quietly kicked him out of the party and never spoke of him again.
If he had just spoken up about his Marxist-Leninist tendencies, he would have gotten kicked out right away.
I know. Jesus Christ. I think it also bears noting at this point that in 1972, they got a new chairman of the party. And throughout this whole cover-up and this whole attempt to support a guy who clearly assaulted a child, no one in leadership of the party stepped down. The guy who was chairman of the party then is still chairman of the party now.
No kidding. That's a long time.
And this is even after another alleged sexual cover-up in 1995, also in fucking Des Moines.
No! Stop doing this in Des Moines. It's a lovely town.
Right.
No,
oh my God.
It's a lovely city. It's a very nice capital.
And so this makes for the beginning of one hell of a heel turn for this party, because since then they have come out in support of a lot of really fucked up things and issues. Are you familiar with the Bundy family?
Yes.
Yeah. So Ammon Bundy, who is a rancher out in Utah, got into a huge fight with the Bureau of Land Management because he didn't think he had to pay taxes to let his cattle graze wherever the fuck he wanted because he's a selfish narcissist and a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And he did a whole armed fucking standoff while also being a racist and a secessionist. The Socialist Workers Party supports him.
What does that have to do with Trotskyism?
Yeah, when his son took over the Malheur National Wildlife Preserve in Oregon for quite a while in an armed standoff and threatened locals often, they supported him for doing that too.
Boo.
They are also against a constitutional right to abortion. And this is because they think that we should work on the societal reasons for abortion happening and shouldn't make it a constitutional right that people can get abortion.
You can do both.
Right. Doing both is the right thing to do, you fucks. But finally, as of 2024, they are vehemently against all criminal charges made against Donald Trump and view all of them as a quote unquote frame up.
Yeah, I'm just getting the feeling that like thinking of these parties as natural organisms, like
Yeah.
they're not shedding in the manner that they used to.
Mhm.
And now there's too much buildup. And
Yeah.
so that's why they're doubling down on all this nonsense. Because usually they would just like purge and recalculate, keep
Mhm.
focused on dumb ideological shit, and they haven't. And we think that's a good thing, but really not for this particular species.
Yeah. And part of the problem, too, is that they have not been able to get youth to join the party for quite some time. The vast majority of the party are just angry old boomers who are just holding on. And I hate to say this, it gets worse. But first, we have to talk about their history of presidential campaigns because they've run presidential campaigns for a long ass time.
Wow.
Their high watermark came in 1976 when the party nominated activist and author Peter Camejo, who is more well known today as being Ralph Nader's vice presidential nominee in 2004.
Cute. Okay.
And for vice president, they nominated civil rights activist Willie Mae Reed. They scored over 90,000 votes, and this is the only time the party has gotten more than 0.1% of the vote nationally.
Bazeltov.
And Cameo was rewarded by being kicked out of the party in 1980 because he thought their blue collar worker cosplay plan was fucking stupid.
God damn it.
In the 2020 election, the Socialist Workers Party nominated Allison Kennedy of Texas, and she was able to get them 6,700 votes. And as of this year, they have ballot access in 0 states.
Wow.
And there's still time to fix this, but I should note that for the past 2 decades, they've pretty much just run write-in campaigns, even for very small sort of races. So their odds aren't great for them getting state ballot access anywhere for president. So if they're going to do that, they need to get a stellar candidate who can get any kind of attention for them to be able to make the ballot. Enter Rachele Fruit of Miami, Florida. Rachele was born in 1949 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Her childhood is a mystery, as is tradition on this show. But we do know she graduated from the Philadelphia High School for Girls in 1967, and then graduated from UPenn with a degree in history in 1970, finishing her college education in 3.5 years.
Okay.
She joined the Socialist Workers Party shortly after and moved to Detroit. In 1973, she ran for Detroit Common Council. I don't know how many votes she got because the newspapers that I have access to didn't say, but she definitely lost. But she did make the papers that year for taking part in this weird thing called a gay rights parade.
Okay.
Yeah. In 1974, she was the Socialist Workers Party nominee for Michigan's Secretary of State.
Oh.
Her platform consisted of 3 topics: abolishing petition requirements for anyone running, getting rid of age requirements for anyone to run, and exempting minor parties from campaign finance reporting. So the last one's weird. It's a little fucky.
Okay.
I do want to remind you this was 2 years before the church committee, and her whole thing was, if we have to say who is giving us money, it's going to give U.S. intelligence just a list of people to harass.
Okay.
So I hate to say it, she's kind of right on that.
Yeah.
But also, no, you need to do campaign finance reporting.
Right. We're seeing this with 2024 eyes, where it's just like, dear God, please, you have to tell us where the money is coming from. There's so much money.
Right. So she ended up finishing 6 out of 7. So, not last. For 16 years, it's kind of a blank. But by 1990, she's now moved to Baltimore, Maryland, and runs for comptroller of Maryland. She runs a write-in campaign and gets 25 votes. In 1996, she moves to Miami, Florida, and runs for mayor of Dade County. The counties there have mayors, and it's fucking weird. At this point, she's taken a job as a parts mover for an aerospace company, but she also owns the party's bookstore. If you ever see a place called Pathfinder Books, that is the Socialist Worker Party propaganda bookstore.
Oh, incredible. Okay.
So this time around, her platform's a bit more varied and includes things like reducing the work week to 30 hours, closing the Chrome Immigration Detention Center in Miami, and using federal troops to defend black churches and abortion clinics from attack, which I'm not sure the mayor gets to make that decision, but I see your
Hey,
point.
have at it.
Also, I'm not entirely sure that people who are going to church want to see, the army standing outside every Sunday, but you're making a point, and that's the important thing here. However, her most unique campaign promise was to actively support the Cuban Revolution, which in Miami is a choice.
That a political death sentence.
Right, right. It's a very heavy Cuban population, pretty predominantly Republican, but across the board, don't like Fidel Castro that much.
Really, yeah, really, really not. In fact, Republican because Kennedy didn't do enough.
Right. And also because Reagan did wet foot, dry foot, which meant that anyone who left Cuba during a period of time, the second that they got into Florida, they were U.S. citizens and could not be deported. So when the front runner for mayor at the time, Gwen Margolis, was told of Rochelle's stance on Cuba, she said to the newspaper, quote, "What? Oh no." Gwen Margolis did not end up running for mayor, but it's one of the best quotes I've ever seen in my fucking life. Rachele finished 8th out of 11, which is way better than I would have expected.
That impressive, frankly.
Look, I gotta admit, 30-hour work week, pretty baller. Shutting down an immigrant detention center, fuck yeah, more of that.
Yes.
But you can't run for office in Dade County and support Fidel Castro and win. That's not how it works. Anyway, so by 2002, she moved once again to Tampa, Florida, and was now working as a meat packer. This time she ran for governor, but by now she just sort of quit making any lengthy policy plans, and almost every race that she had after this was just so she could protest the war on terror.
Okay.
Yeah. She knew there was no chance that she was going to win. So this was her, a chance to get out there. If anyone asked her any questions about running, she could just say the war on terror is fucking dumb.
There you go.
Not wrong.
Yeah.
She failed to make the ballot running for governor, but got 24 write-in votes. Next year, she ran for mayor of Tampa as a write-in and lost. And then in 2004, she ran for Senate and got 25 write-in votes. I don't know where she got the extra one, but good on her. And finally, by 2008, she moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and ran a write-in candidacy for both agricultural commissioner and U.S. Congress. And she got 2 votes for Congress. In 2013 did feature her best campaign when she ran for Atlanta City Council. It was a 2-way race, so she was pretty much getting all the protest votes and got 19.7% of the vote.
Okay.
And then didn't run for any elected office until this year.
What?
I mean, that's all right. That's kind of half true. She moved back to Miami, Florida at some point, got a job working for a hotel, and tried for a while to run for governor or Senate in Florida. The problem is Florida's election laws it's extremely easy to become a recognized third party, but extraordinarily hard to get a ballot line as a third party candidate. So even as a write-in candidate, she did not have much luck getting on the ballot. But she's running now, and it's a really opportune time for Rachele to be running because it coincides with the third pillar of the party, and probably the most important pillar they have in this modern era, Zionism.
Oh boy.
The Socialist Workers Party is ardently Zionistic and
really
fervently, frighteningly Zionistic. To the point that, I went on their newspaper called The Militant, which is online. It's fine. But a lot of the time is now spent circulating a lot of hoaxes and rumors that have been disproven since October.
Ooh.
So one of the most repetitive rumors that they have is in regards to accusations of sexual assault during the attack on October 7th. These accusations were built up by a lot of extremely Zionist and unreliable sources. But a lot of the proof behind it was that they pointed to pelvic bones being broken on a number of women. And a number of doctors have come forward and said no human on earth has the power or the capability to break a pelvic bone through sex. That's something that happens from like a large impact or an explosion.
You all have been reading way too many shitty erotica books.
Yeah, a lot of wolf-themed erotica. It's not how it fucking works.
I am asking you again to please get off What's Pad.
Literotica is not a medical journal.
Please, please stop citing your sources as Omegaverse. My medical degree did not prepare me for this.
This is the darkest moment of our podcast. I'm glad we're making our way through it. So they've also spent a lot of time justifying the genocide in Gaza and state that the success of Israel in being able to defend themselves is linked hand in hand with the labor movement.
But then why can't I just
Well, they bring up the way I understood it and the way it's written is kind of fucky. But, and I'm willing to admit if I'm wrong on this, but the phrasing that they used makes me really believe that this is what they're going for. So in one of their articles, they bring up the phrase, the Jewish question, which if you've been online a little too much, the Jewish question is like the polite phrase that anti-Semites and Nazis use to question whether or not Jews control the world and whether or not they should be gotten rid of. So the way that they kind of phrased it in an article is that the Jewish question actually is important to the workers' movement because to the workers, of course, the Jews run the world. And if you're going to convince people that they aren't, then you have to support Israel in this war to prove that it's more of a socialist movement than like any sort of, power grab.
What?
Well, I mean, I'm viewing it also as like a patronizing sort of thing where it's like, of course, these dumb fucking workers think Jews control the world. And that's why it's important to them. And that's why we need to prove to them that that's not what Jewish people are, that they are people who deserve their own homeland to be free of persecution and free of anti Semitism. The aristocrats.
Yeah.
They've also stated that any statement made against Zionism increases the risk of overall anti-Semitism, which, uno reverse, is fucking anti-Semitism. I don't know how to convince these people that claiming that all Jews are Zionists is anti-Semitic. It's not fucking true. Just pick a campus. Pick any fucking campus. You dumb motherfuckers. All right, this is the part where I got too angry to be able to cite my sources very well because, like, at some point you just kind of quit caring about giving people the benefit of the doubt or what they're also supporting, and you're like, this is fucking garbage shit.
Yeah.
And I don't want to give the benefit of the doubt on this. But then there's what I discovered an hour before we started recording. I was going through the Militant, I was searching stuff, and I was like, I'm just gonna type in the word Jewish and see what comes up. And one of the things that came up was an article written by Sarah Lopp that was writing about a Socialist Workers Party forum in which one of the people they invited was Columbia professor Shai Davidai. Now, if you're not constantly online, I'm sorry to ruin your life just a little more. So Shai Davidai is a business professor at Columbia. He's also a former soldier in the IDF, and his parents run an ammunition company that, supplies weaponry to the IDF. So he kind of has a little bit of a bias going into this that he's a very ardent Zionist. But during the protests in Columbia, he's gotten kind of Twitter famous for a couple of things. The first of which, he tried to lead a pro-genocide protest in the middle of the encampment, brought a bunch of very sketchy right-wing New Yorkers with him. And when he tried to use his Columbia ID card to get into the university, it was declined.
Awkward.
But the more famous thing he did is that at one point during the protest, he took a video of Muslim students praying, and the inference of his video was that this is a sign of the fall of Western civilization, that Muslims are being allowed to pray openly on campus, and this is a direct threat to him. The comment section was great because across the political spectrum were people being like, I don't know what you mean by this. What are you talking about? There were far right people who were just like, what are you saying? Far left people saying the same. It was wild. It was about the only time I think everyone on Twitter agreed with each other.
Are we actually getting along?
Right. For a split moment, Mike Cernovich was getting along with Nina Turner.
Honestly, Nobel Peace Prize right there.
Yeah, so the Socialist Workers Party are aligned with Shai Davidai, who actively wanted the National Guard to come and kick out the students at Columbia. Yeah, he's a violent piece of shit. But wait, that's not all. Because we haven't even talked about the new nominee for vice president for the party, Walmart employee and Los Angeles resident Dennis Richter. So just like Rachele, Dennis has repeatedly moved around and run for office. But I'm going to focus on his 2021 run for governor of California during the recall election. In his reply to Ballotpedia, Dennis stated that he, quote, opposes wokeism and cancel culture.
All right, Dennis. What is the age of our dear Dennis?
Dennis is I had a hard time finding out which Dennis he is because, I use newspapers.com and I saw that he was born in Minnesota. So I was trying to find Dennis Richters in Minnesota and I found three.
Okay.
I found one who's a very violent teenager who tried to rob his jail girlfriend's mom.
Incredible.
There's another Dennis Richter who started an emergency housing program called Hope House, where essentially he bought a house and with three other classmates from the University of North Dakota, just let people come in and out whenever they needed, just to have shelter.
Well,
Yeah.
okay.
And he was like a psychiatrist with St. Barnabas Hospital. He's very, very accomplished for a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
Also, not the Dennis Richter we're talking about.
I'll still know.
Yeah, and then there's a third Dennis Richter who seemed really good at 4-H when he was a kid. And I don't know which one is the Dennis Richter we're talking about. But if I had to guess, he's born in like the late 40s, so he's at least probably 70 now.
Yeah. All right.
So he's a cranky old man who hates
Yeah.
the woke.
Yeah.
So of
Hit
course
us with your non-woke wokenesses.
yeah, cancel culture running amok and ruining exactly zero fucking careers because cancel culture isn't fucking real. It's
Yeah.
consequences that are temporary, and those people still have fucking careers.
SNL hasn't been funny since Chevy Chase left.
I'm gonna eat this microphone, Una. You can't say that to me. You can't say that to me. Chevrolet Chase should not be on this fucking show.
Is that what Chevy stands for? Oh, of course
No,
it does.
it's not. I think he took a stage name from like a suburb in Maryland.
I don't want to say that. I always assumed the suburb came after the man.
Wouldn't that be fucking embarrassing at this point?
But I did always find it weird. Anyway, okay, so Dennis,
Yeah,
what you got?
so I wanted to know what he meant because wokeism and cancel culture could mean many number of things. So I looked him up on the Militant. Of course, he's written some articles for them, and it seems like what he entirely means by wokeism and cancel culture is that trans people are allowed to exist.
Yeah.
The whole party in general actually views the trans rights movement as a distraction, and worse than that is actually going to eventually remove rights for women and LGBT people. So yeah, this is just standard turfy bullshit. They view the trans rights movement as a proletarian battle or something only middle class people care about, and that it's not what workers care about. You gotta fight for workers, and trans people aren't workers.
Hey, LGB, don't you think T is hogging a bit more of the spotlight than it should?
And y'all just throwing Q under the bus like it's like
Yeah, this
like-
is Q erasure.
like sorry, we also want to fuck trans people. Is that like what is this? What's going on? You motherfuckers. Eat shit. Fuck off. Also, the Socialist Workers Party has come to the defense of J.K. Rowling, and any criticism lobbed at her is an attack on all women.
Yeah, that's solidarity with a billionaire.
So yeah, the Socialist Workers Party are Trotskyists, except in regards to Castro, but also they like Zionism and they hate the woke. Make it make sense.
This is a mess. They need like an image counselor to come in and just clean house.
And look, I don't want to be ageist about this, and I'm gonna say but, and I know that negates what I've just said. Every picture from this party is just cranky old boomers who are mad that, the revolution never came because the plan they instituted in 1978 was fucking stupid and was never gonna goddamn work. And none of them have the wherewithal or the strength to actually follow through and make it work. Also, you're working at a fucking Walmart, Dennis. Fuck off. Like, look, I understand, like, capitalism forces us to work jobs that we don't want to work.
Right.
I am assuming that if you're in the Socialist Workers Party, you have money. You're doing fine. Like Rachele has an Ivy League education. She has the money to open bookstores for this party.
So true.
If you have the choice to not work for Walmart and be fine, you should fucking do that in solidarity, you motherfucker.
Or open like a food pantry, like
Right.
an anti-Walmart spot.
Like, I liked him better when I thought he was a 20-year-old who opened an emergency housing place just out of gumption, just because he fucking could. And no, of course he's not that fucking guy. He's a guy who's going to try to go from place to place, from Atlanta to LA to Oakland to try to work any number of fucking jobs that he doesn't stick with because they're too fucking hard, and because the job of trying to convince people to become a Trotskyist is too fucking hard, even though it's what you committed your goddamn life to, Dennis. You fucking turfy asshole. Why don't you just fuck off? This party is gonna die. And that's the thing, is they're right back to where they were in 1958. Everyone is too old. There's nowhere left to pivot to. Everyone who's doing this grift now is too internet savvy to like, they've already made their name. They don't need more people involved in this. And the Socialist Workers Party clearly has no idea how to use an internet in any regard.
They need another country to become communist.
Look, I just want just move to Cuba at this point. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think Cuba wants them.
They definitely don't.
But they're just really angry boomers, bigot MAGA-com boomers who are watching their party die in front of them, a party that has been here since 1938. And they're gonna kill it because they have nowhere to pivot to, and all they have left is their own bigotry and fruitless anger to guide them. And they're moving into retirement, so it's not like they can actually go to other blue-collar jobs to infiltrate.
But what if now they become sleeper agents in the retirement communities? Entryism.
All right, guys, we're all going to move to the villages in Florida. We're going to get them to become Trotskyists.
Step 1, gain admittance to Kendall at Oberlin. Step 2, start talking.
This is probably something for you and me, but they did have their last party convention in 2023 at Oberlin.
Shut the front door.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, the Socialist Workers Party International Education Conference was held at Oberlin.
Damn, they are hard up for the youth.
That's the thing, is you're going to Oberlin where these kids have read this shit. They have better Trotskyist options if they want to go with that.
They really do. And God knows, it's like they are the well-off socialists that would be this party's future.
Yeah.
But
and like, if you want to say
but
you're
they're
against
too queer.
Right. If you're against wokeism and cancel culture, you don't want to go to fucking Oberlin. They nearly shut down a bakery over that. It's like you will not thrive here. Man. But yeah, if you're like a weird Zionist who hates trans people but also really loves Trotsky and Castro, you might have an option if they can actually get on the fucking ballot anywhere, but Lord knows that's too hard of work for them, so they probably won't. So, in summary, they're a bunch of up their own ass lazy assholes, and good riddance when the party goes away.
Wow. How do you really feel, Dusty?
Look, I mean, they're trying their best. And oh Lord, I hate having these hard opinions about people, but my God, if you're gonna pull out all of this internet bullshit, I'm gonna fucking yell about it. I don't know, thoughts, feelings.
So hilariously, when I was in Detroit a month ago for a cousin's wedding, I did run into a socialist party, but I can't remember if it was a Socialist Workers Party or another socialist party.
I mean, there are definitely a number. It might have actually been the Socialist Equality Party, because they have a really big presence in Michigan right now.
Okay.
They're like based out of Oak Park, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the Detroit suburbs.
I gotta find the flyer from it, because and to be clear, this person wasn't at my cousin's wedding. I was.
They didn't just sneak in and start handing out books and pamphlets.
That ain't my family. No, what happened was I had some time before the wedding started. I went to the Art Institute, highly recommend. And this person was like passing out flyers and seeing if we were Wayne County voters, getting out the vote, yada yada.
Yeah.
But either way, I remember this person saying how they were real socialists, unlike AOC or the new mayor in Chicago. And it was all I could do to be like, you keep his name out of your mouth.
Yeah, that's probably the Socialist Equality Party. We'll be covering them in a bit because they did announce their presidential nominees like a month ago. They are nowhere near like the Socialist Workers Party. They are Trotskyists, but they have a lot more focus on policy and theory than whatever the fuck these people are doing now. So it'll be a calmer conversation in a lot of regards. But yeah, it's dark out there. It's really rough.
Yeah, I hear Socialist Party and I just assume youth, frankly.
Yeah. And I think that's a fair thing to think about. And it's I think it's rough just because there are so many. A lot of these parties, in a lot of regards, have a hard time keeping youth engaged. If it's the Party for Socialism and Liberation, they're very good at gaining youth members, but lose them really quickly either through overwork or through sexual assaults. Or any number of promises that go unfulfilled. Socialist workers, I think they don't have an internet outreach, so that already cuts off a load of the youth to begin with. I haven't Socialist Party USA. I think they probably have the best chance because they have we said this in our episode about them. Their vice presidential nominee is very good at organizing from a local level, so at least in that regard, I think they probably have the best chance. But it's just bleak. It's just really, really bleak. Cool. Well, next episode, we're actually gonna have a guest come in to host. Where both Una and I are gonna be a bit unknowing going into this. Friend of the pod, Gabby Weiss, is gonna be coming in to teach us all about New Jersey politics right before the New Jersey primary.
Oh, the best politics.
Yeah, supposedly the ballot access line is wild and weird, and so I'm very excited about that. She's gonna be teaching us about a couple candidates, a couple dramas that are going on.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm gonna watch The Sopranos.
I plan to ask her about Hirsch Singh, who is probably one of the bigger New Jersey gadflies, but is like just really incompetent, just foolishly bad, and has come so close to attaining his dreams, but usually through some fuck up of his own stumbles on his dick at the finish line. But yeah, we'll see what we talk, and we'll probably talk about the Sopranos.
Yay!
Cool. So yeah. Sorry for this angry episode, but we'll see you next time. You're on Gadfly.
Rim Tim Tagadin.
Rim Tim Tagadin. Yes. Gadfly is a production of Added Serotonin. Our episodes are edited by Brianna Valentine of Rem Alternus Productions. Our theme song is Sophomore Makeout by Silent Partner, and you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at GadflyPod.
Ready to level up your cosplay game? Check out the Geek Forge on Etsy. With a variety of props to give your photos that extra spark, you'll find just what you need. Hold magical fire in the palm of your hand, or take a potion to restore your mana. With a large variety of colors, you can choose your own magical flavor for your cosplay. Bring drama to your photo shoots with these vibrant props and more, all available at the Geek Forge. Are you ready to level up your cosplay?